Resilient and innovative education systems are founded upon inclusivity and flexibility that empower stakeholders, especially learners and teachers. Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. The Coordinating Council of Private Educational Associations, or COCOPEA, reaffirms its support to face-to-face instruction in basic education. We thank the Department of Education for easing the administrative requirements to open up schools to face-to-face instruction and learning under DO 34 series of 2022. There is still, however, that strong interest in blended and online learning platforms in the private schools. As we all know, during the first 2 years of the pandemic, learning was able to continue and was made possible through remote learning platforms. This was supported by the Department of Education through Department Order Number 12, Series of 2020. The private educational institutions back then mostly used the online platforms, while the public basic education schools used mostly the printed learning modules. By the end of 2021, the Philippines has recorded the world's longest lockdowns of schools. The Philippines primarily depended on distance learning for the education of its student population, and this has allowed many of the private schools to enable its digital transformation through needed investments and teacher training on these platforms to augment learning of students in the past 2 years. And now that face-to-face learning is allowed, a systematic adoption of blended learning, or a combination of the face-to-face and online platforms, allows us the opportunity to maximize the optimum benefit of both in-person learning and the innovation of digital technology without sacrificing the health and safety of our students to the COVID-19 virus. At the start of school year 2022-2023, we observed that blended learning and online modalities are common in private schools, while integrating in-person classes in their asynchronous platforms. Outside of the Philippines, this trend on blended learning is also manifest in most Asian countries. Also, the private education sector remains accountable to the students and academic community for their safety. The adoption of blended learning allows individual schools to manage their capacity of persons inside the campus for better supervision and management of students in implementing health and safety protocols. As we highlight health and safety, we hope to increase the vaccination rates for our students entering the campus. We would like to thank the Department of Education for helping us on this respect in appealing to the Department of Health for the prioritization of school children in the vaccination efforts. We also thank our Vice President and concurrent Secretary of Education for her patience in listening and engaging the private education sector in its appeals and meaningful discussions pertaining to the blended modalities and online learning. Yesterday, we have formally received communication from the Secretary's office that the matter of blended modalities and fully online platforms has been considered by the department, and a policy is now being drafted by the Department of Education for the President's approval, and that not later than September 30, the matters we have raised shall have been resolved by the department. Maraming salamat po, Madam Secretary. On the matter of economic and financial impact of the pandemic on families, indeed, the education sector was hit hard. Many of the students whose families were economically affected by the pandemic were not able to send their children back to schools. At the start of the school year 2020-2021, it was reported that around 400,000 students from private schools transferred to the public school system. And as per affected private schools, these students left unpaid financial obligations, leaving behind the institutions lacking in resources to continue operations. It was reported that around 700 private schools permanently shut down because of the pandemic. Some who were able to continue had to downsize and retrench their teachers and school personnel. By school year 2021-2022, there were still 400 private schools that had zero enrollment according to the Department of Education. At present, we continue to receive reports of school closures. As the country tackles COVID-19 recovery economic assistance to affected sectors, it has also shown the need for legislation to provide state financial support to private educational institutions. In recent legislative deliberations, this had been highlighted, and many legislators agreed that there is a need to explore ways for the state to support private educational institutions. Proposed measures to extend the education service contracting under Republic Act 8545 to elementary education and elementary students, increase amounts of the senior high school vouchers under Republic Act 10533, and extending the teacher salary subsidy to teachers in senior high school have been filed in Congress. Overall, these measures, if enacted into laws, would strengthen the complementary roles of public and private sectors in education and improve the efficiency, quality, and accessibility of our Philippine education system. Together with our education leaders from the education agencies, especially the Department of Education and the legislature, there is a strong push for education to be prioritized, building on the lessons learned and knowledge gained in the pandemic, with conscious efforts to strengthen the complementarity between the public and the private sectors in education. With a strong partnership between the public and private sectors in education in place, there is no doubt our Philippine education system can recover fully from the pandemic and reach even greater heights.